Land of the Snake People by Percy Trezise. Introduction. Aboriginal oral history tells of hundreds of dream roads crisscrossing the Australian continent, which were made by ancestral beings during their travels at the beginning of Dreamtime. It also tells of a vast freshwater lake at the top of Australia, and stories about ancestors like the Antamula sisters. There is also scientific evidence to suggest that 36,000 years ago there was a large freshwater lake at the top of Australia. Scientists called it the Lake of Carpentaria, and it was also known as Ballinaga, the Big Water. This is the story of three children and their journey around Ballinaga, along the dream road of the Antamula sisters to find their way home. The young girl who was rescued from the snake men along with Lande and the two emu girls was about the same age as Jalmor. Her name was Wongabel of the Woomera people. Her country lay on the far side of the snake and red kangaroo clans, who were bad Pungalunga people. The children were sitting in the camp of the emu people with Luska nearby. Lunde told Wongabel of how they had been swept away from home and across the lake by the storm, and were now on the long journey back. Jadianta said Wongabel could come with them as they had to pass through her country to get home. Jadianta talked with the emu people of how to safely cross Pungalunga lands. They warned him that the Pungalungas were cannibals who, when they caught children, would eat the boys and keep the girls for wives. The emu man, Gubala, told Jadianta that before they got spear throwers from the Woomera people, they used to frighten the Pungalungas by swinging the bull roarer at night. The Pungalungas thought the booming roar was made by evil spirits, the Quinkins, and stayed inside their gunyas. Jadianta was told to see Galmara, a healer and storyteller who made bull roarers that sounded like bull crocodiles fighting. He found Galmara sitting by his gunya, rubbing goanna fat into a flat oval of wood. It was a bull roarer. Galmara showed Jadianta how to make different sounds by swinging the bull roarer round and round and varying the speed, and lengthening or shortening the string tied to the smaller end. Jadianta practiced until he could make sounds loud enough to terrify the Pungalungas. Jadianta said they should travel at night, so the three Kadimakara children decided to stay with the emu people until the moon was waxing and they would have more light to travel by. Just before dawn, they would look for a secure place to hide during the day and sleep. They filled their dilly bags with dried nonda plums, cooked meat, and yams, and when the moon was right set out to reach the river crossing just on dark. Luska led the way across the children, kept a sharp lookout for crocodiles and snake men, the Pungalungas. Little Wongabel was excited to be on her way home at last. The Pungalunga people lived along the lakeshore during the dry season, only hunting inland occasionally. So Jadianta set a course a little to the right of the sisters' stars, which would keep them away from the lake. Luska led the way through pale moonlight. They kept going all night with just one rest by a creek to drink and eat some of their food. When dawn was paling the sky, they came to a water lily lagoon fringed with bushes. Some of the lilies were seeding, so the children gathered the sweet black seeds and pounded them into cakes. They roasted them over a small fire and ate them before lying down to sleep under the bushes. In the late afternoon, Lunde was awakened by a growling Luska. Someone was coming. He woke the others. Jadianta told them all to slip into the water and hide among the lilies and reeds. They placed large water lily leaves on their heads and sat with only their eyes above water, breathing through hollow lily stems. The sound of men speaking in a strange language became louder, and they saw a hunting party of Pungalungas, snake men, drinking on the far side of the lagoon. Suddenly, there were more men drinking nearby, so they held their noses and sank below the surface, still breathing through the lily stems. Luska remained hidden in the bushes. It was near dark when Lunde peered out. She saw Luska walking about, and so she knew that there were no men nearby. The shivering children emerged from the water with more lily seeds and made a fire to cook them and warm themselves. They were very hungry and ate all the food left in their dilly bags. Jadianta decided it was time to swing his bull roarer to keep the Pungalungas shivering in their gunyas. The undulating moaning roar echoed back from the nearby hills, and an eerie silence fell over the land as they continued their journey by moonlight, heading toward the sister stars. Dawn was breaking as they made their way through rocky outcrops. Suddenly, Luska snarled and they heard coughing barks and sounds of a struggle behind a tumble of rocks. Jadianta waved the others into hiding while he and Luska crept forward for a closer look. Jadianta peered around the rocks and saw that two striped wolves had just killed and were eating a wallaby. He waited until they had eaten half the animal, then, with Luska behind him, rushed, yelling at the wolves, and flung a spear. The wolves fled, and Jadianta was elated that they now had fresh meat to cook. There were caves in a cliff above them. It would be a good place to hide and sleep during the day, as the caves were not used during the dry season. They found a cave which had a ground oven ready to cook their wallaby, and there was plenty of wood stored nearby. Lande had dug up some yams, so they put them all in to cook, then lay down to sleep. In the afternoon they awoke and had a fine feast of roasted wallaby and yams. They gave Luska plenty of meat to eat as well. After drinking from a creek, they were refreshed and ready to go. Jadianta again swung his bull roarer, and it echoed around rocky outcrops as they set off. The cooked wallaby meat lasted them for 2 days. Then they only had nonda plums again. Even Luska was eating them. The night travelling meant they couldn't hunt for meat. When they found a good hiding place at dawn, they made a fire and lightly roasted nondas to make them sweeter. They were eating the sweet nondas when Jalmor noticed that Luska was missing. Lande searched among the rocks, calling Luska's name softly, but she was nowhere to be seen. The three children were settling down for sleep when Jadianta looked up and saw Luska returning. She was carrying a young wallaby in her jaws. When they set off one evening to continue their journey, Jadianta decided to return to the lakeside so they could catch some fish. He led the other children to the top of a plateau to see where the lake was. It was not far away, and below they could see a few gunyas among trees along the shore. Jadianta told Lande that before the moon rose he would go there to find a walpa, and pointed out a creek mouth on the coast where Lande and the other children were to meet him. He told Lande to watch Luska as she would be alert and hear him coming. Jadianta swung the bull roarer before going down to the camp. When the gunyas were nearby, he wet his finger and checked that the breeze was coming toward him, and the dingoes would not be able to smell him. He crawled silently through the grass to the shore, untied a walpa, and paddled quietly away. Lande had the others waiting at the creek mouth. Luska sat up and watched the river. Then Lande saw the walpa coming in the moonlight. They all got on, and Lande helped to paddle. Jadianta had pointed to a small island just down the coast where the walpa could be hidden among reeds and the children could fish and rest for a few days. The big moon hung low in the sky when they reached the island. It was still some time before dawn, so they stopped beside a bank of reeds to fish for breakfast, using the last of their cooked meat as bait. They caught 4 big fish, then landed on the island and dragged the walpa up to hide in the long grass. The island was a good, safe hiding place to rest for a few days while they feasted on fish. The Kadimakara children and Wongabel enjoyed their rest days. They stayed hidden and slept in the daytime. After dark, Jadianta and Lande would go fishing and then cook the fish in the ground oven for the next day. The children had been there a few days when, one afternoon, they were awakened from sleep by the sound of people talking and laughing. Peering through reeds, they saw families of Pungalunga people settling down to camp on the shore opposite. The children wondered if these were bad Pungalungas of the red kangaroo people. They had dingoes and the dogs were all staring across at the island. The dingoes had scented the Kadimakara children. Jadianta, Lande and Jalmor continued to travel along the dream road of the Antamula sisters, and now come to the land of the kangaroo people. They know the danger is great. Can they avoid the Pungalungas and make it through to the safety of the Jabura clan? Glossary. Ancestral beings. People who came down from the stars at creation time and turned into every species of life on Earth, animal and plant. Antamula sisters. Two ancestral beings who travelled around Balanorga during Dreamtime. Balanorga. The name for the Great Lake. Bala equals big, Norga equals water. Bull roarer. A small oval of wood with a string tied to a pole in one end, making a roaring noise when swung around the head. Dilly bags. Woven grass bags for carrying food and belongings. Dream road. The path of an ancestral being during dream time. Emu people. A clan who believed their ancestors became emus. Ground oven. A hole in the ground lined with stones, which were heated by a large fire, after which the food was placed on the stones and covered over. Gunya, a shelter. Kadimakara, a bullock-sized marsupial similar to a wombat. Kadimakara People, a clan on the east side of the lake. Nondas, plums of the nonda tree, yellow oblong fruit which were a staple food in northern Australia. Pungalungas, both snake and kangaroo people with deep-set eyes and sloping foreheads. Quinkins, supernatural beings wandering at night, some friendly but mischievous, others bad and evil. Snake men, a clan who thought their ancestors were snakes. Walpa, a raft. Woomeras, a sling used to throw spears. Woomera people, a clan of people who invented the woomera, a spear thrower to provide a long-range weapon.